Welcome, everyone. Welcome to On the Porch. My name is Scott Bottrell. Today we have a special guest on the porch, bringing some Southern fire and heat to you, Mr. Abe Partridge. How you doing, my friend?
Hey, Scott. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
It's so good to have you here. I've been excited to have you on the porch and to talk about your songs. We were talking earlier about how you're one of my favorite storytellers around here, and how you can take this music and create this imagery that everybody can see. But before we get into that, for the people at home that don't really know much about you, let's talk a little bit about who you are, where you came from, and how you fell into becoming a musician.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Mobile. I went to Davidson High School, and I went to 4 different Bible colleges in 4 years. I graduated and married a woman that I met there, and the day after I graduated, I moved up to Kentucky, and I started pastoring a church when I was 25. And when I was 27, I decided I couldn't do that no more, and I moved back to Mobile. I didn't have no marketable skills, so I joined the United States Air Force, and then I started. Then I went to war in 2013 and 14, and I came back, and in 2015 I started playing songs that I had been writing and stuff, and so here I am.
You know, that's amazing. And I know there's a lot of story in between there that we can't really necessarily get to here. I know highs and lows. I mean, to spend your whole life learning to become an evangelical minister and then having to walk away from that.
Yeah.
And then joining the military, which is, in a way, almost the polar opposite of preaching, being sent to war. I can obviously see where a lot of your storytelling might come from, living a history, of this magnitude, basically.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't mean for it to be that way. It just kind of happened that way, Just living,
Yeah.
Just living and doing what you think is right at the time, and then you end up accidentally doing all that,
So you started writing a few songs, and I know, but you played your first show at, was it 30A?
No, my very first time I ever played in front of like a listening audience was at this thing called Gulf Coast Songwriter Shootout.
Oh yeah, that's right.
October 2015. Yeah.
And you were completely nervous, never played in front of anybody.
Yeah.
And you played 3 songs and blew the crowd away.
Well, I reckon. Yeah.
Well, then it launched. That's when you started recording right after that, correct?
Yeah. One of the other guys who was a contestant in the songwriter contest that night was a guy named Sean Byrne, and the prize was a lot of money for this thing. So there was a lot of people that came from a long ways away, and he was from Nashville, and he was there competing, and he came up to me after I finished playing that night, and he said, "Hey, where do you play?" And I said, "Man, I don't play nowhere." And he said, "Well, come up to Nashville," and he's like, "I want to record your songs." And so I thought he was a scam artist or something, And then I ended up looking.
A lot of people would be like, "Hey, I can record you." I know what you mean, yeah.
So I looked him up, and he was totally legit. And so I went up to Nashville and recorded a record in December of 2015, like 2 months after my very first show.
Wow.
Yeah.
And from there, I know me personally, I watched you come out of nowhere, and it was almost a meteoric rise, and it has to do with your talent and your songwriting ability and your ability to capture audiences with your stories. But we also, before we go into, we're going to have Abe play you some songs here pretty soon. But before we do that, I know we need to talk about your other passion, which is your art.
Yeah.
And the art, specifically the art club that you just started.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I paint. I started writing songs and painting all at the same time. I started writing songs and I started painting as a way to cope with the depression that I was in for about a year period of time trying to figure out what I wanted to be and how to leave the ministry. And songs and art is where I turned to find, it was like an avenue that I could pour out my heart into put my heart into something.
I can only imagine trying to overcome those things of that nature and trying to bring it out of the psyche. I mean, that had to have been really difficult.
Yeah, it was. It was the darkest period of my life. But during that, I started writing songs and painting, and so when I finally decided to start playing my songs in 2015, I started. I had some early success, and I started traveling and playing songs around the Southeast, and I got the attention of this local label called Skate Mountain, and they ended up wanting to put out my next record, and they had hired me a publicist and a manager, and the publicist was my name Michelle Rose. She's from Athens, Georgia, and the manager was Jeff Wooding, and he was from Seattle, Washington. They both came over to my house, and we were talking about how we were going to release the record, and I had been making paintings for about nearly a decade by that point. And but all my paintings were just kind of in a back room, and there was one that my wife would let me hang in our house because they would scare people, And so she would only let me hang one in our house, and it said welcome, and it stood beside the door. And so we talked about how we were going to release my record, and then Michelle and Jeff, they stopped and they looked at that painting before they left, and they said, "Who made this painting?" And I said, "I made it." And so they said, "Well, do you paint?" And I said, "Well, yeah, but I mean, I just kind of do it for myself." And they said, "Well, do you have any more?" And so I pulled out all my paintings out of the back room, and they said, "Well, you're going to have an art show when you release your record." And so I had my first art show in February of 2018. And since then, it's been at the University of South Alabama and the Alabama Contemporary Art Museum, and it was on that movie Dr. Sleep, that Stephen King movie. Yes, I saw that. Yeah. So it's a lot of places, and since this whole disease started, I had to figure out a way to make a living, because most of my living was made on the road playing music and selling art. And so I started the Alabama Astronaut Art Club, and we charge people $29 a month. It's a subscriber thing, and then we send out exclusive, like hand numbered prints just for the group. So.
And you said you were keeping it at a low number. You have 100 spots.
We got 100 spots, and right now we have, I think, 67.
All right. So if you want to get in on the Alabama Astronaut Art Club, you got to get in, so that way you can see this man's art.
Yeah.
Now we're going to get into some more of this stuff later. Your songs and your art. But let's get into a song.
Okay. Yeah.
And the ones that you sent that you wanted to play today, out of the ones you sent, my favorite was Colors.
Yeah.
It gave me such vivid imagery, and it really struck me and really kind of put me into a little bit of a hypnotic state. So could you tell us where Colors came from?
Yeah, Colors is about finding love in a less than perfect circumstances, which is how most love is found anyway. And I wrote that song whenever I was I used to work over in Biloxi every day at the Keesler Air Force Base. I was a civilian serving in the military, and I was driving over in the Pascagoula Bridge one morning, and I would see the sunrise, every morning, most every morning, depending upon the season, but and the sun and it just lit up the sky, and I was like, I got to write a song about this, and by the time I had made it to work, probably 90% of that song was wrote.
Oh, beautiful.
You know? And it was one
As a songwriter, I know how amazing that is when it can just fall into place like that. Yeah.
Yeah, man. That's when it's good, you know.
Yeah.
when it's working right. But yeah, that was one of them songs I feel like, you know, I think God wrote it.
Yeah.
And then he just let me put it on paper, right? You know?
Well, this is one of my favorites. It's called Colors, and you can find it anywhere, Abe Partridge, from Spotify to SoundCloud. But without further ado, Mr. Abe Partridge, Colors.
Like a silver roan choir, the sun rose high through the blues. Set the pink sky on fire as I burn with desire and love with you. The back porch squeaked underneath our feet as we danced in this golden hue. And the oranges of autumn were shimmering from underneath the dew. Colors are all that matter when you're already outside the lines. And what we thought was just scribbles had become a pretty picture in this pale gray night. And our past was pretty shady, and we didn't have a history of doing right. It didn't happen like we planned it, and folks won't understand it, but our love, it ain't black and white. Well, I found you last night as the blood moon shined in dying reds, and the green in your eyes, it was accented by your lavender dress. You hit a long blank stare behind your purple mascara as I so pitifully confessed. I was a 3-time loser with a black cloud that followed. I was a formerly handsome mess. And like an evening primrose in midnight yellow bloom, you said to me, I ain't never met a man with no obvious plan and such honesty. And I've been broke too, in money reds and hard blues, and I've seen the darkest valley. You may have lost 3 times, but you won't here tonight, so let's paint ourselves lucky. 'Cause colors are all that matter picture in this pale gray night. And our past was pretty shady, and we didn't have a history of doing right. It didn't happen like we planned it, and folks won't understand it, but our love, it ain't black and white.
Amazing, right? It was amazing. Abe's amazing.
Thank you.
I love it. So before we go on to the next song, you touched a little bit about Alabama Astronaut Art Club, and that all came about, and I don't want to linger on it too much because we talk about it a lot, is the coronavirus and the quarantine. And I know it's affected you just like everybody else. You
Yeah.
lost every gig.
Yeah.
You had a UK tour coming up. Mm-hmm. You were getting ready to start working your way up to launch a new album.
Yeah.
I mean, you were really moving forward, and this thing dropped you flat. Am I?
Oh, well, touring wise, absolutely.
Touring-wise.
Yeah, touring wise, it
I mean, it affected everybody,
Yeah.
but that's where the Alabama Astronaut Art Club came from,
Yeah.
and I wanted to bring it up again because right now, this is how Abe makes a living, is through his art. You know, you can go to abepartridge.com and you can get his art. Could you hand me your painting right here? I'd really like to set this
Here's
up.
one of them. Yeah.
Here's one of them right
So
here.
I paint on tar, roofing tar.
I'm a contractor, so I know
Yeah,
how
you know
it
what
is.
roofing
Yeah,
tar
yeah.
is, yeah.
It's a horrible, horrible substance.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you tar these, and then you let it cure for 30 days.
Yeah.
And then you
Or so, yeah.
and then you etch it with ice picks, screwdrivers,
Yeah.
acrylic
yeah.
paints.
Yeah, you did your homework, man.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Thank you.
What's the symbolism here on this one? Can you tell us about this piece?
Oh, this is just a guy trying to make it as a folk singer in his hometown.
I love it. I want this one right now. This is
yeah.
like perfect.
Yeah. And it says, "Don't play your hometown on."
Now, Abe's got a ton of these on his website, so don't be afraid. Go purchase some art. Try to get in his art club before they run out of spaces, because once they do, you're out of luck. You
Yeah.
know, and this is how Abe makes his living. So you can find Abe on PayPal and TipJar and get on his website. Send him a little bit of cash for what he's doing for us today, because he's entertaining all of us. But now let's go on to the next song. Okay.
Okay.
Simplicity.
Yeah, simplicity is about, well, it's about, life becoming too complex at times. It seems like the more complex life gets, the worse it is.
Yeah.
And how decluttering and simplifying your life will make you a happier person.
I think that's pretty apt right now, considering what we're going through, because everybody's been forced to live a little bit more of a
Yeah.
simplistic life right now.
Yeah.
So we can all kind of relate to
Absolutely.
to this.
I mean, I know that there's been aspects of this that I've really enjoyed, and a lot of it is about being a lot more simple.
We talked about out there earlier about family, just the
Yeah.
time you get to spend with the family, and
Yeah.
those bonds that, when we're out running around and doing a million things, we don't always get that chance to
Oh, yeah.
spend countless hours with our family without trying to strangle them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, I'm always normally on the road, at least 2 or 3 weeks a year. I mean, a month, 2 or 3 weeks a month. And now I'm at home every day. I got 3 children. I got a 6-year-old that really wants to be at my side, the whole time, all the time. So it's good to be able to be around them a lot more.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Well, before we go into this song, I'm really curious on your process of how your actual process to writing this song, or any of your songs. Like, how do you do it? Do you craft melody? Do you craft lyrics? Where does it come from? Does it spring from within and just, come out? What's your process?
Well, most of the time, I I'll get words in my head first, and then I'll put them on a melody. You know, I'll try to fit them all on a melody, but it's one of those strange things that I don't understand, and I don't want to understand, because it's like like I don't understand music. I never took a music class, and the guitar is a mystery to me, and I like it that way. And I never took an art class, and so when I paint, it's all just a big mystery. And when I write songs, I don't know how to write songs. I just, whenever something strikes me as potent, I try to write it down and try to build something around it. So
I can see that, and that helps me understand why you're such a potent storyteller, because it sounds like the story comes first.
Yeah, most of the time, yeah.
And
yeah, most of the time I have lyrics, and then I'll get my lyrics mostly finalized, and I'll try to put music on them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. All right, well, then let's get right into it. Mr. Abe Partridge, Simplicity.
Love ain't a feeling, no, love is an act. It's less an emotion and more of a pact. It's when you decide to give yourself freely. Yes, it's simple, really. And life ain't just living. No, life has a course. It's less what you do, and it's more who you are. When you follow your heart completely, yes, it's simple, really. But how many live in the misery of complexity? And happiness ain't in heaven. No, happiness is free. It's less what you got, and it's more what you give away. It's singing your song amidst the sonic graffiti. Yes, it's simple, really. And what if the Lord's only mystery was simplicity? And heaven ain't a dreamland. No, heaven's in your heart. It's less a destination, and it's more of a spark. You'll find in your midnight burning so deeply. Yes, it's simple, really. Yeah. is simple, really.
Blew you away again, didn't he? I knew he would. All right, we're going to keep rolling. We got a couple more songs we want to get to. But first, we touched a little bit upon this about you having to shut down your UK tour this year.
Yeah.
And one thing that that I wanted to talk about, because I've watched you over the last 4 years just kind of rise out of nowhere and go to a place that a lot of the struggling musicians coming up don't get to do, and that is you traveling overseas and playing everywhere. Tell us a little bit about your experience going overseas.
Oh man, it's incredible. I've been in 2018. I did a tour in the Netherlands and Belgium, and then
Nice.
in 2019 I went over and did the United Kingdom and Ireland and the Netherlands and Belgium again.
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible, man. I mean, from my perspective, which is a guy who grew up in Mobile, Alabama, you know, it seems like they have a lot more of emphasis on arts, not just music, but all the arts. And
So I'm taking it your art was really well received while you're playing.
you know,
and touring.
I did carry some with me, and I would sell it at my merch stand. I didn't have an art show. I never did an art show over there, but most of the stuff I've been doing over there has been centered around my songs.
Yeah.
But yeah, and there's a big audience for Southern songwriter folk music. So
I've heard that, you know, we have a few friends that travel and
Yeah.
stuff, and they seem to be very into the Southern culture and lifestyle and music.
yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
beautiful, because guys like you get to go and travel the world. And
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
that's beautiful to me. I mean, if you're gonna have a dreaming musician, that's traveling around the world, meeting people and playing music. I mean, that's part of the dream right there.
I'm really fortunate, man. I mean, what happened was I put out my first record, Cotton Fields and Blood for Days, and
Which you can find everywhere we talked about
you
earlier.
can find it all over the internet. And I ended up getting contacted by a booking agency in the Netherlands, and the agent had heard my record because we had some. I had a great publicist over there in the Netherlands, and a Dutch publicist, and so I ended up touring over there. And at my very last gig, I ended up opening for another American. At a show, and this has been my last show of the 2018 tour. Can't remember the name of the city, but it was in the Netherlands, and there was a guy playing with the American. He was playing keys, and so after my show, we were hanging out, and the guys was like, "Hey, you want to come to the pub with us after the show?" I was like, "Yeah." So, I mean, I was traveling by myself, and there was three of them: the American songwriter and his wife, and then this English piano player. And so we went out and was hanging out in this pub, and I ended up talking with this English piano player. We just like really almost immediately connected, you know.
Yeah.
And it was like we knew each other in a past life or something. But he said, "I want you to come open my shows in the UK next year."
Oh, beautiful.
And I said, I didn't know who he was, you know. And so he got up to go to the bathroom, and I Googled him because I just thought he was I just thought he was a piano player.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was like.
We've
like
all heard musicians, "Hey, I'm really good," you know.
Yeah,
you don't
right.
know. Yeah.
And so I Google him, and he's like a certified English rock star.
Wow.
You know? And so I just got to go over back in October, November, and I opened like it was like 25 dates for him from the bottom of the UK to the top and over into Ireland. And
Wow.
I opened every show. Yeah, man, it was amazing. Because I'd never really I'd never been there, you know. So
Yeah.
I got to see basically pretty much every town of significance in that country I saw, with the exception of just a handful.
Yeah.
It was incredible, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. I mean, like I
Yeah.
said, if you had one dream, that to me, that's it. Travel the world.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing.
Man, when I started playing songs, I had been to Texas a couple times, and I'd been to Kentucky, and that was and then of course the military took me to, desert and stuff, but I mean,
Yeah.
that's a different
Took
kind
you
of
overseas,
traveling.
but yeah, that's so different than what we've
It's a
been
different
talking
kind
about.
of traveling. But yes, I'd been as far as Texas and as north as Kentucky, and that was like the extent of where I'd been. And now I've been to Europe twice, and I've been all the way to the west. Went to toured down through California and stuff. And yeah, man, music and arts it's like opened so many doors for traveling, and I'm really thankful, and I love it, man.
Man, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're going to get into your next song real quick, but before we do, just real quick, I want to touch upon your punk roots.
Yeah.
We hadn't talked about that yet.
Yeah.
Tell us about your punk roots, because when people hear your music, you don't automatically think on your singer-songwriter level of the punk until you hear with the band, and then it really comes out.
Yeah, I got a little side project, I play with, so I write rock and roll songs, or punk rock songs, in addition to the other kind of songs that I play, and I get the rhythm section of the Red Clay Strays play with me.
Heck
and,
yeah!
and
if you're gonna get a rhythm section, that's the one right there.
They're awesome. They're my buds, John and Andrew, and then I got a friend of mine from Birmingham. His full-time gig, he works for the National Weather Service, but then he'll play guitar with us, and so we actually did some recording last year. We got a record. It's called the Psych Peas. We got a record coming. It was going to come out in July, but now that's not going to be coming out in July. But we got
Postponed.
we got a vinyl. We've already got 500 vinyl records already made up. We had a show scheduled at the Soul Kitchen, and our debut show was supposed to be there, and I had people coming from like Cleveland, Cincinnati, Charleston. We had people coming over from Austin. We had people flying from the Netherlands.
Man,
People coming from England, and everybody was coming to this show. And because I'd been telling people about it, and we never really traveled with the Psych Peas, and so some of my more hardcore fans were gonna fly in, and of course,
it's all canceled.
But we're going to reschedule it, and we're going to try to make it happen.
If y'all haven't seen it, I know today what you're going to hear from Abe is almost two different things. You will feel the flavor of what he does, and you will hear that hardness coming out in his singer-songwriting, but the Psych Peas are a little bit more of an experience, and you really need to experience the Psych Peas. So as soon as they get out going again, may get a chance to go to the show, or maybe we can talk him into doing a live stream one of these days and get the Psych Peas out.
The problem is just trying to get my buddy down from Birmingham, and plus, man, I'm getting too old to do it, man.
Rock and roll's hard on the body, ain't it?
Hurts. Yeah, my Uncle Sam's he's taken the best of my knees already. So I'm trying to.
Well, you're branching out in different avenues. It's smart, diversifying.
Well, it's I like to make that kind of music, and I like to play that way, and that's the kind of the music that I grew up on, and so it's fun to do. It's just not something that. We're not gonna get a van and go play 100 dates this year.
Yeah.
But we might play 3 or 4 of them.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you don't have many opportunities then, so you got to go see them as soon as you can. Now, all right, let's get into the next song. Black Flag T-shirt Lament.
Yeah.
Can you tell us real quickly about that before we go into it?
Black Flag T-shirt Lament is about being an artist and a songwriter in Mobile, Alabama. It's a story about that.
Man, I think we can all relate to that. It's out there listening, all of our friends and everybody.
Yeah.
All right, are y'all ready? Black Flag T-shirt Lament. Mr. Abe Partridge.
hearts cry and fill the silence of the night as the falsely civilized come to seek their thrills and the Holy Ghost roams these dripping streets alone. But he can't find a single heart to steal. It's just another smiling face and a phony handshake as them posers fill the art district streets. So I just smile back, ashamed of the whole act. That's the price I pay for being part of the scene. And I like your Black Flag t-shirt from a designer in New York, that in an act of rebellion you bought off Amazon, and you covered your jacket with reproduction band patches that you never listened to even when you were young. But I could love enough for the both of us, but it's getting harder for me to count the cost. Because with every dirty dollar, man, I'm beginning to wonder if there's any purity left in my great art. Now Nero may have played his fiddle, but Rome rotted from the middle, and folks have a way of weaving myths into tales. We know our story all so well. It was heroin and shotgun shells, till my generation's art died with Chris Cornell. And maybe it's the influences of my youth that gave me this jagged truth. Maybe it's my punk rock ideals, but this old hippie jam, it's a beach town trinket scam. And like Dylan, man, I'm stuck in Mobile. Up on crying, so it may appear that I ain't trying. It's just hard to be an artist in this town. So I'll curse here to trod, I'll close my eyes and I'll sing to God, 'cause I knew you wouldn't listen anyhow. Oh yes, I knew you wouldn't listen anyhow.
All right, we got one more song, but before we get to that, a couple more quick questions. I want to go back to 30A, okay?
Yeah.
Let's name drop a little bit, because you got to do something that I know a lot of people would kill to do, and that's meet John Prine when you were at 30A. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, John, that was back in January, which seems like 5 years ago now, but just a few months back. But my manager is Russell Carter, and he's the same guy who puts on the 30A Songwriter Festival. And I'm also friends with one of I'm fortunate enough to be on very good terms with this guy named Rick Diamond, he's a great photographer, and he's the guy that like gets all the exclusive access to everything.
Oh, nice.
And so
you got the hookup.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
Rick Diamond, he's like one of my biggest patrons. Like he buys a lot of art from me.
Wow.
And he also is like this. He gets all this access. So he got me. Him and Russell helped to get me back there because they knew I loved John Prine, and he's one of my heroes as songwriting.
I mean, and the timing. I mean, he just passed. I mean,
I know it's so unfortunate.
I mean,
but he left there and went to Europe, and when he was in Europe, he somehow contracted the virus, and then he came back, and his wife had the virus, and she recovered, and then he got it, and he passed, but. It's just so unfortunate. But, yeah, man, I'll always cherish that.
I mean,
5 minutes.
Yeah,
I got
5 minutes,
But still, that was like.
And your mind's like, I got a million questions and you can't think of any of them, right?
Yeah, I was really starstruck. Yeah, absolutely. When I meet famous people like that, I'm just like.
You sold paintings to Mike Wolf from American Pickers.
I did. Yeah, Mike Wolf and I text like once every couple of weeks now.
Wow.
Yeah, he's like my bud now.
Wow.
Yeah, last time I was touring through Nashville, I stopped in at his place and hung out the day with him.
Right on.
Yeah, he's given me
Is he
some
taking you on a
coats and
picking expedition yet?
No,
You need
no.
to have him do that.
I know. I need to. That would be
Should
cool.
be like, that sign's worth a fortune right there.
Yeah, he's a really cool dude, man. He just popped into my art show in January. I had an art show in January, and I was just in there, having my art talk or whatever. And in the back door, he come on, and everybody's like, "Man, that's that guy from TV." And I'm like, "That's that guy on that American Pickers show." And then him and his wife come up to me, and they're the coolest folks, man.
Man.
And we talked that night, and he told me, he said, you can cut all this out if you want to, but he said 10 years ago, I was living in my van.
Wow,
And he
I didn't know that.
He said, I had nothing but a passion to tell stories. And he said, it consumed me. And he's like, I pitched my show to all these different places. History Channel turned him down. All these places turned him down. He lost everything he had, was living in his van. The History Channel called him up, said, "Hey, man, let's take a shot on this."
Wow.
And now he's like the #1 program on the History Channel.
That's
crazy.
That blows me away.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes along with your story, too. Some of my favorite stories is when somebody's on their last leg, and almost in a way you were, too. I mean, you were life-changing, for years and years and years, and didn't know where you were going or where you were going to be, and never thought you were going to be playing music like this and creating art, and here you are. And to me, the journey of where life can take you, to me, is just a beautiful thing. And Abe, you've had a beautiful journey, and I can't wait to hear more of it and to hear more stories. And I think your story deserves a book one day. Just going to throw that out there. Maybe maybe put it in a book one day.
Yeah.
Or a movie.
Somebody can write.
I'll star as Abe Partridge in the movie.
Oh, yeah. There we go. You're way prettier than I am, though, so I don't know if that's going to work. We need somebody like Sergio. We got to get one of them ugly guys like Sergio to do it.
Well, before we get to this last song, I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Telling us your stories and playing your songs. And through this hard time, please keep writing, keep coming up with more stories, share them with the world, make people laugh, make people cry. That's what we all want.
Yeah.
Everybody go online, abepartridge.com. You can buy some amazing art pieces. Get on Spotify, YouTube, all the platforms. Check out his music. Get his album Cotton Fields. It's amazing, And Blood for Days, Cotton Fields and Blood for Days. Yeah. It's amazing. So again, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
And we're gonna finish with one more song. But before we go, I want to thank All This Entertainment for bringing this production to life for us. These guys are working incredibly hard behind the scenes, and it's amazing. And I know you all don't see it, but I get to watch it. And, every 2 weeks it's just crazy, crazy, crazy as we try to put these things together and we get these amazing artists to come in. So thank you, everybody. Before I pass this off, though, we need to talk about your last song.
Okay.
Preaching the Blues.
Yeah.
Real quickly, tell us about that before we launch out of here.
Preaching the Blues is about growing up, listening to rock and roll music, and then becoming a fundamentalist Baptist preacher, and still having rock and roll music and fundamentalist Christianity all living in the same brain.
Man, it's
Yeah.
everything we talked about
Yeah.
today. This sounds like the Abe Partridge song right there. What a great song to end it on. So everybody out there, please be kind to one another, help each other out. Just love on your neighbor. Be safe out there, everybody. So again, thank you, Abe Partridge.
Thank you.
And we're going to end it preaching the blues. Mr. Abe Partridge, everybody.
Well, I know Elvis is the king of rock and roll, and Jesus Christ could save my soul. But no one ever taught me how to pray, so I ain't nothing but a hound dog another day. And I cried the day that Kurt Cobain died. You know, he played the soundtrack to my teenage highs. And I wonder if he found peace by and by. Oh well, whatever, never mind. And stained glass could always soothe my soul, but God don't like rock and roll. Janis Joplin had my heart since I was 15, and she could summon down them angels when she sang. And God knows how I've been trying to change, but something's got hold of me like a ball and chain. And Bob Dylan was something like an old-time prophet, and now my heart's all questions and I just can't stop it. Maybe my head needs some rearranging. What can I say? I guess some times are changing. And the Delta blues are the hardest to play, but I could sing you a hymn like I was dying today. And now I've grown so tired of trying to repent. And when Son House played the blues, he played them in a trance. And so there ain't but one thing left for me to do. I'm gonna join Son House and go to preaching the blues. I'll join Son House